Well, hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Punch. I am Jessica. I'm going to be your co host today with
Tom McEwen.
Awesome Sauce. So, this is going to be another short one. We love when we get the chance to just, showcase what's in our minds and talk about one thing that we feel like it's going to add value to your life. And so what we're going to be talking on this quickie episode.
Yeah, this is going to be about properly valuing your offering as a practitioner, as a studio, as a wellness business. One of the things that takes place is we get a lot of feedback and a lot of stories shared with us that there's a huge population of bargain basement hunters and bottom feeders out there. And let's be honest, we've all been bottom feeders before. We're all looking for a deal. We're all looking to save money and pay as little as possible. The flip side is that we often don't see the work, the resources, the time that goes into who you're hiring, what they're providing, and you often devalue it. And we want to make sure that we and you are not on the wrong side of the equation where you commit to a very low price point while you're offering a tremendous amount of your time, services, and resources, and you have either very little margin or in some cases no margin, right, Jess?
Mm-mm. Yeah, I love that. One thing that I would say is that value is always going to be based on perception. And normally there are four things that people will use as a frame to find value, whether that is they want to make more money, save time, or save effort. If you get to frame your proposition between one of those four things, you'll probably find value. However, that's the theory. In practice, you need to be a really good listener to be able to see before they tell you what you think their value is going to be. And depending on that is how you position your offer. You had this thing on the workshop we did, which is present your value as short as it would fit in the back of a napkin.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that where a lot of people uh, get confused on this with a very concise offering is we're always taught provide more detail, be more clear, more right. Give as much information as possible. That's actually the opposite of what you want to do. You do want to encapsulate your offer and your value as much as possible, but frankly, it's in as few words as possible, right? Because transparency is currency, and being able to communicate what you offer, but in a concise way, really is where the money is. People are not going to understand what it is that you value or offer, and they certainly do not want to know that many details about what it is that you do. Believe it or not, they want to know what it is that you do for them. And most people want to understand things on a very basic level. As they say, make sure that when you write a book, if you want to be a bestseller, you write on a third grade level, right? Because if you go beyond that, at that point, you're distancing yourself from being understood from the masses and from your core ideal market.
Mm-hmm. So another piece of advice I would like to share is that was about what I shared before was about value. Framing your value when you're trying to do the sale. However, one thing that it's coming more and more is when you guys have a membership based clientele, don't take your members for granted. It's so important to be integrated with your members so that you can see how is it that you can keep adding value in those members' lives, which is something that is not just about, how can I frame the four things that I just told you about? Finding value for your members, it takes another kind of like finessing and strategy. What do you think of that, Tom? How you think that owners can cultivate value for existing members?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to putting yourself in the shoes of your existing members, the key word, of course, is belonging, and of course, that's belonging in a community. People are looking for experiences at the end of the day. It's not just about the coaching, the reps, the getting fit. They're looking for an overall experience, right? And if you establish that experience and you do a good job anchoring the experience to them, and they generally look at your establishment as that third place where they go, I think that's how you create lifetime value, and you enhance the lifetime value of the customer versus just a relatively short transaction. What do you
That's
think?
so good. That's so good. Because in the beginning, when customers didn't have too many options, you could get by with taking for granted that if your clients had a transformation with your product or services, they would stay with you. But that's not the case. You can be providing an amazing transformation for them, but that might not be enough because what they're looking goes beyond that transformation. They want to feel connected. They want to feel that whatever they're doing, it's going to be purposefully aligned with what they want in life. I love that. I love that we got to touch a little bit about that. Anything else that we want to share?
I just think that it's just, don't forget your value. Don't underestimate your value. You're going to get into some conversations with potential patients, potential customers, clients that are going to want to make you negotiate a deal with the devil from your perspective. Don't let it happen. Stick up for yourself, stick up for your value. Remember who you are, and remember you're worth more.
And my last thing I will say is educate and empower your team on this topic. Maybe this will prompt a conversation on, hey, how do you think that we're doing in expressing the value, in communicating the value, in nurturing the value with our existing members? I feel like that conversation is going to allow the whole team to feel heard and then also give you more ideas on how can you keep cultivating that value, because in the end of the day, the more you give, the more you get.
Thanks for joining this abbreviated episode of The Revenue Plunge.
Awesome sauce.
See ya.